Hi, I'm Matt Smith with the Portland chapter of the American Guild of Organists, and I'm here today with Dr. Catherine Webb, or Katie, and we're going to talk about a program that Katie is going to present on February 25th at 7 p.m. In conjunction with the Portland chapter and Trinity Episcopal Cathedral's music program. And Katie is going to do a program on music of underrepresented composers. And I'm excited about this program. I looked at the list of composers and pieces and recognized just a few of them. So it's really exciting to see a program of new or music that's unfamiliar, at least to me. So before we get in the program, Katie, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am from Kansas originally, and my father was the director of music and organist at the Episcopal Cathedral in Topeka, Kansas. So definitely grew up in the business, but I didn't actually start playing the organ until college, um, where I finally had a chance to take some lessons, and then I sort of took it and ran. Basically, really enjoyed it. So I went to St. Olaf in Minnesota and I studied with Kathy Rodlin there. After I finished at St. Olaf, I taught public school choir for a while, and then I felt a tug to go back to school. So I ended up did both my master's and doctorate in organ at Indiana University, where I studied with Chris Young. And I got to Portland through the cathedral. I was the organ scholar here for 2 years, starting in 2020. And then when my predecessor, Bruce Neswick, decided to retire, I said to my husband, hey, we like it a lot here. How about I throw my name in the hat? And turned out to be the right place at the right time. So that we've really enjoyed being here in Portland and really enjoyed the musical community here at the cathedral and getting to play such a really amazing instrument here. So
Yeah, for sure. The Rosales Opus 11. And congratulations on assuming the position of canon of cathedral music at Trinity. I know it's a great community, and personally, I've really enjoyed what I've heard at the services and concerts since you've taken the reins. So thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Tell me a little bit about how you got the organ scholar position.
It was a crazy time. I actually had applied and accepted another position elsewhere, but then COVID struck, and the institution went on a hiring freeze the day before I was supposed to go out there and sign a contract. Um, but I saw a Facebook posting from Bruce that they were looking for an organ scholar, and my husband, well then boyfriend, now husband, had always wanted to try living out in the Pacific time zone, and so I said, "Hey, how about Portland?" And it all ended up going again, right place at the right time. So uh, we decided to come out here though. We weren't able to travel here and visit, and I had only been here once before, actually, and Dan had never been out here. So we sort of took it on good faith that it was all going to work out, and we're very grateful that it did. So.
Yeah, yeah, crazy time indeed, and lucky for us. So let's talk a little bit about the program that you're going to present on the music of underrepresented composers on February 25th at Trinity. I was looking over the program, and of course, some of the names were familiar to me. We've got Emmylou Deemer from Kansas City, who's now based in Santa Barbara, and David Hurd, of course, is well known to us Episcopalians and as the music director at St. Mary the Virgin in New York City and composer of some well-known compositions in our hymnal. But I have to confess, a lot of the pieces, maybe most of them, and many of the composers are names that I'm unfamiliar with. So maybe you could tell us a few details about the program and what we can expect to hear.
Totally. So the deep dive in terms of the genesis of this idea of programming this music came right during the all the George Floyd protests in the summer of 2020. I had just finished all my coursework at IU and was getting ready to move out to Portland, and I realized that I had been through for 9 years of pipe organ study, and in that entire time had never played a piece by a black composer, never played a piece by a composer from Latin America, never played a piece apart from a couple of small church pieces by a female composer. And I was like, wow, I have some work to do. So when Bruce and we had a tradition of doing postlude series here for Sunday morning Eucharist services. And when Bruce and I were throwing ideas around about what we might do, I said, I would love to explore some new stuff, and I would love to make a sort of be as we aspire to radical hospitality here at the cathedral, and I think looking to new sources and new places, new traditions for music is a great way to do that, to show that radical hospitality. So that's where we got this idea to do this postlude series, and then it was really successful. Lots of folks who, even though we were largely online that year, people got lots of emails saying, "Oh, I loved hearing all these new composers, these new pieces." And Ward Nelson, who is the almost outgoing dean of the Portland chapter, said to me, "Hey, would you like to, do a program of this music on a recital for the AGO?" And I said, "Absolutely." So that's where the idea came from. So I have chosen music sort of in two groups for this concert. One is sort of just larger concert pieces. By folks. So Cecilia McDowell is a living female British composer who's written a ton of great organ and choral music both. And she's written 3 different pieces in a kind of suite on a poetry of George Herbert. And this is one of those pieces, the Church Bells Beyond the Stars. I've got some music by a guy called Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who was early 20th century British composer, the illegitimate child of a white father and a black mother. And he wasn't an organist himself, but he wrote a ton of organ music and some church music that apparently was quite popular when he was alive, but his sort of popularity waned after his death, his early death, actually. And then the rest of the music is actually I organized it in the cycle of the church year because I wanted to play stuff that I want other people to play. So I've grouped the rest of the recital. We're going to go Advent to Pentecost in a little bit of ordinary time. So choosing pieces based on hymn tunes or seasonally appropriate things that, most people don't know, but are really cool pieces. There's a cool piece by a guy named Eric Santos who teaches at the University of Michigan. He's only written one organ piece, and this piece is really interesting because you can tell he works with electronic music with how he uses upper partials and how he uses the swell box to make different parts of the organ louder and softer throughout the whole piece. Your foot's working the box the whole time. And it creates this really crazy phasing effect, and it's a piece about star rising for Epiphany. So I'm really curious also about hearing the compositions of people who aren't necessarily intimately familiar with the organ, but are curious in it as a sound-making device.
So you mentioned in your studies, and I certainly had this experience as well, as that the canon of organ literature that we're taught doesn't include people from a lot of different groups. How did you and so that sparked your interest in these underrepresented composers? But how did you go about researching and discovering this music?
It was a lot. It's a lot of internet searching, a lot of digging through some books I already had of mixed repertoire that I hadn't really taken a second look at before. Also, I emailed Lois Fife Music and said, "Hey, here, can you send me some ideas? Like, what do you have?" And they helped me out a lot. One of my friends and colleagues here at the Cathedral, Eric Simmons, who's another AGO Portland chapter member, is another great advocate for new music and underrepresented music. So he has shared a lot of ideas with me too. And I really appreciate that. And, I have used Susan Matthews, who's the director of music at St. Paul's in Burlington, California. She and several other people have started a database of sacred music by female composers. And they have now begun to offer some organ voluntaries as part of that, but even looking at the composers from that list of choral music to seeing if they have organ music. And I do the same thing. I found a list of I'm struggling to remember the website right now, but there's a database of Black a non-idiomatic music of Black composers in America. And looking at lists like that, even if you're not sure they wrote organ music, but I looked to see if they did, and several of them did. So
Great. Well, when we say someone or something is underrepresented, what does that mean to you? What makes someone or something underrepresented?
it's a great question, and I think it sort of depends on uh, nuanced context. But in my case, as an Episcopal church musician, for me, I'm thinking that there is a lot of music in our file by dead white men. God bless all of them. So in terms of when I'm thinking about our music for Episcopal liturgy and concerts that we do here, I'm thinking about women composers, thinking about composers of color, um, even maybe not. I didn't do it for this recital, but and this isn't really so much a social mode of underrepresentation, but as more as an invitation to other composers to write more for the organ. People who haven't written a lot of organ music. That is one way of looking. If outside of the socio-racial context, or looking at how do we continue to have a vibrant repertoire for this instrument that fewer and fewer people are choosing to play. So
That's great. And um, yeah, clearly you're thinking outside of the box here and departing from our received tradition of organ literature. Why do you think that's important?
well, I think on a personal note, representation matters. I grew up not really having seen another woman or female identifying person in a leadership role in church music. And I'm grateful that I had my dad as an example, but I don't think it would be I don't think I could have gotten here in the way that I did without role models to look up to who looked like me, sounded like me. And my example is just a microcosm of what some people go through. And I think including different voices from different traditions, not only when a place like Trinity can use its platform to elevate them, it enriches our own tradition. Because if you think about the worldwide Anglican communion, not all Anglicans are dead white men. Most of them aren't. And
Mhm.
so, any way we can be, again, that radically hospitable, we can adopt that as a core value, and show people that we are interested and we are open and we are caring of other traditions. Not in addition to doing a great job maintaining our own, this English church music vibe that we're so good at here, making room and space in our minds and in our hearts for music of other traditions can help enrich both our worship life and the life of our community as a cathedral outside of worship too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in fact, it's probably important to point out that you are one of only three female directors of music at an Episcopal cathedral in the United States. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I'll say that it's great to see you breaking that ceiling, and hopefully it will be a trend that the underrepresented become well represented.
I agree, and I'm with your hope. And I there are several sort of traditions that we've inherited, as both at locally here in Portland at this church, but also as a nationwide Episcopal church. And I'm hoping that we can take a closer look, not just take them for what they are, but ask ourselves, why is it this way? Why is it that we always see male people in this role? Is it a sort of a tacit assumption? How about an overwhelming majority of white people in this role? Where is the disconnect from the participation rates, which are high? I mean, a little less high post COVID, but we're working on it. Of young kids, boys and girls, partaking in choir programs. And where do the girls go? Why don't we see them in leadership positions? So, of course, I'm speaking just in terms of that gender thing, but you could
Hmm.
apply that to race, gender, socioeconomic status,
Hmm.
availability for opportunity. So who's
Yeah,
playing the organ?
yeah, indeed. Thank you. I'd like to shift gears a little bit and just ask you for any thoughts that you have or anything that you'd like to share about the music itself. We've talked a little bit about the composers, but anything about the compositions or anything interesting about the music itself that the audience might like to know.
Sure. So, let's see here. I have tried to program different tunes from sort of in a wide variety of musical textures, and I'm going to try to show off as many of the varied colors of our great organ here as I can. So we've got some more lyrical items. For instance, there's this really gorgeous piece called Arietta by Thomas Kerr, who's a Black American composer that he wrote for, in honor of his parents. That's just absolutely luscious melody line with accompaniment that has definitely pulls in some jazz chords but it's absolutely a sort of modern chorale prelude without being based on a chorale, but in that same texture. There are a couple of fun toccatas. There's a great one based on the Pentecost chant Veni Creator Spiritus by John Demessieux. She has two pieces on the program, one really lyrical short Advent piece, and then this kind of ruckus toccata. There's another really fun toccata by Adolphus Hailstork, who wrote quite a lot of Black American composer who wrote quite a bit of organ music. I had a hard time picking a piece of his because there are several that I wanted to play, but I had to make sure I had lots of different folks on the program. But that's a really fun toccata on O Come Emmanuel for Advent that I'll play. I mentioned the really fun Epiphany piece with the very unorthodox organ sounds, but that will be, and also has a kind of almost Eastern chant aesthetic to the melody in that piece. It's really fun. A couple pieces by American composers, as you mentioned. We got a piece by Emmylou Deemer that's a kind of fun reworking of the Easter hymn, "This Joyful Eastertide." She adds lots of, in her Emmylou style, she adds a lot of fun chromaticism that you don't necessarily expect. And let's see here. There's a piece for Christmas by the Black female composer Alan Orton Gibbs. That's quite lovely, almost not exactly Orgel Buchlein-esque, but that sort of efficiency of form and style for this prelude on Quem Pastores. And I've got a personal-ish connection to one of the pieces. I'm going to play a meditation on the Lenten Passiontide hymn, or spiritual, "Were You There When They Crucified My Lord," written by Evelyn Simpson Currington. Now, my connection to Evelyn Simpson Currington is not to the composer directly, but while I was at IU, I took an organ pedagogy class, so I had to have an organ student. And a voice professor, a very esteemed, awarded voice professor named Marietta Simpson, who has sang with every opera company in the country, one of the most famous Porgy and Bess performances of all time. She teaches at IU, and she said to our department chair, "I'd like to take organ lessons." So I got to teach Marietta Simpson, who is sister to Evelyn Simpson Currington. And so when I programmed another one of Evelyn's pieces last year, I sent Marietta a note saying, "Hey, I'm curious, are you guys related?" And she said, "Absolutely, that's my sister's music, but my sister was always way better at the piano and the organ than I was." So there we go.
That's wonderful. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like an absolutely exquisite program, and I, for one, am really looking forward to it. And we should point out that it's free, it's open to the public. It's Dr. Katie Webb, the Canon of Cathedral Music at Trinity Cathedral, and it's February 25th at 7 p.m., 147 Northwest 19th Avenue in Portland, Oregon, and we hope you can all make it.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to see everybody there who's interested. And I should mention that we will take a Freewill offering, and it will benefit both the Portland chapter of the AGO and Trinity Cathedral's diversity fund within its music budget, which we use to commission new works or to hire BIPOC performers or composers or women, conductors, all sorts of things to further our anti-racist work here at Trinity. So
Fantastic. Katie, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today and share some details about this program. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and it sounds very moving, and we're excited to be there. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, Matthew, Matt, and thanks for your great questions too.